guys, welcome to the second episode of The Artistic Spirit. This is a HorseSpirt Arts Gallery Facebook series, and tonight we're featuring artist-painter April M. Rimpo. But before we get to April, I'd like to introduce you to the man who makes this all possible. It was his idea. He does all the hard work behind the scenes, and his name is Rob Hicks. He's the co-owner of Enlightened Audiovisual. So Rob, over to you.
All right. How are you, Abe? How are you, Robin? I've got so many things going on today. I can't keep track of it.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for making this show possible.
Sure.
So
big night tonight.
It is a night. It's exciting. So first, I have to ask you, why are you wearing bright yellow?
So today was the official IPO launch of Snapchat. I don't know if you use Snapchat, but a lot of young people do, and so they went public today. So in the spirit of technology and IPO, I decided to wear yellow.
Fabulous. Yeah. Well, tell everybody a little bit about your business.
Sure. So I do live video productions on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter. And, you know, this is actually one of the things that's interesting is that just last week, if you're watching us on your phone and think, man, this would be great to watch on my television, you can actually now do it if you've got an Apple TV. So if you've got an Apple TV device, you can download the Facebook app and you can watch this show full screen on your home theater system or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Got a few people in the chat that I want to say hi. So you're not looking, but Charlene is here and she says, hi guys.
Hey, Charlene.
Candy Sakai, our pal from Japan, is here.
Wonderful.
Hi, Candy.
Hi.
And let's see. Oops, I lost the chat. But I'll as we go forward, I'll tell you when we've got more comments. But we'll have a great show tonight.
Oh, thank you. All right, guys, here we go. The first thing we're going to do is show you a couple of pictures of HorseSpirt Arts Gallery. I have my art in this gallery, my husband's art, and I brought in 44 other local artists. It's a very eclectic, uplifting group of artists. We have everything from fine oil paintings to watercolors, acrylics, fiber art, jewelry, ceramics, wood turning. We even have sculpture made from clock parts. I believe that art covers many genres, many media. So I am very excited to share with you all the artists in the gallery. So tonight, I'd like to introduce you to April M. Rimpo. April is a very accomplished artist. She's been published. She's won awards. She comes by art naturally. Both her father and her grandfather were painters, so it was in her blood. And all throughout her life, she's taken art classes and workshops. What's really interesting about April is her career choice. Her degree is in electrical engineering. So it makes for a real cool right brain, left brain art thing going on with her. So without any further ado, welcome April Rimpo.
Hi, Robin. Thanks so much for having me. It's very, very neat being your second artist today. And, you know, I watched Bill's episode, and I think what you're going to see tonight is going to be really interesting to the viewers because Bill did found object art made out of metal, and I'm now painting using bright colors and vivid textures. So, you know, just that variety that you have in your gallery, I think is going to just begin to emerge with this show.
Well, I'm excited and honored to be representing all of you. So, April, let's start by you telling us about your art.
Sure. So as you mentioned, my father and grandfather had both done art. My grandfather was a carpenter by trade, but it was during the Depression. And one of the things that he did was trade his art with other people for other goods that he needed. So I think that's kind of interesting. I started doing drawings, you know, as a kid, and, you know, whatever source material. I mean, I think I had a game that was called Candyland, and I think Raggedy Ann and Andy were characters in the game, and I would draw them. So, you know, it was started very young. And what I want to show you today is the fact that in my art, I'm really into color and texture, and kind of talk about that and why I use those things.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. I think the first thing we should do is go on a field trip of your gallery, April, and then you should tell us what we're looking at.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so I am lucky enough that I actually have the use of my entire basement. So we're looking at the area where I paint, but as we circle around here, you're looking at a seating area where I have art on display. So it's kind of like a little mini gallery of sorts. And you can see some of the variety of work I do, and we'll be talking about that as the evening progresses. I'm also have my workout equipment here. So it's, you know, it's a functional basement area.
And that's very important.
Yes, it is. Actually, I'll paint in the morning and I'll get on the treadmill and look at it and figure out what do I need to do next. Here's some artwork on the wall. It's mine. Last year, I did kind of some experimental paintings with textures, and this is some of the work I did in that time while I was trying to research what I wanted to do. This little stand here has some of my smaller works. It's a nice place to store them along with some paints. And then while we're just looking back.
April, you have the coolest studio. And not only do you have an inside studio, but you have a whole other part that has to do with your framing. So how about if we take a look at that?
All right. Yeah, so this is still in the basement. This is now in the unfinished part of the basement. On the left, Robin hasn't mentioned it, but I also do fused glass. So we just passed my glass kiln. This is the area where I stretch my paintings. I work on paper, but I stretch the paper over stretcher bars and then I varnish them. So that's the table where all that messy stuff happens.
And there's a bicycle, which I just have to smile about because you have so many bicycles in your painting, but you do not bicycle. So tell us about this. What's up with that?
Yeah. So I used to bike when I lived in Arizona. Arizona is very flat, so very easy to ride a bike. And the streets are wider than I live out in a little country farming area. So when I first moved here, I biked, but I felt very intimidated by the traffic going by because, you know, there was really no lane. So I haven't cycled in a long time, but there is a triathlon that comes through town twice a year, actually, that's run by Columbia. And the bicycle route comes through the town where I live. And so I just have to walk about a mile to the center of town. I can take all these photos of the cyclists. I really admire them, and I love the shape of bicycles. I don't know why, but I do.
You do. You do.
So therefore they become part of my art because they're part of my life.
That's so great. Hey, Rob, can you show us some pictures that April has done of bicycles?
Saw one during the opening when he was, actually two, when he was cycling through. And this is one of those. So this is indeed from some of the shots that I took in town. When I do my bicycle paintings, I kind of like the idea of the fact that they're moving fast. And so I use a lot of abstract backgrounds in those paintings to kind of get that blur effect of their speed and the energy of what they're doing. And then this one here is one where I mentioned earlier that I really like color. And so I will intentionally distort colors from reality in order to kind of add some energy to the art. And this man here actually lives quite near me, and he doesn't know that how many times I've painted him.
That's really good. That's really good. All right, April, this is a beautiful painting, which is in the gallery. Please tell us about this.
Sure. I visited Guatemala a few years back, and I fell in love not only with the place and the landscape, but with the people. And this woman actually was sitting on church step. It was very active. There was all kinds of things going on in the background, but she just looked so at peace and so internal to herself that was what I wanted to capture. So I eliminated the background. The colors represent the wonderful fabrics that they weave in Guatemala. But she was just so self-absorbed, and I just loved this woman. I thought she was magnificent. I needed to share her.
You know, isn't the name of that one April, Woman Praying?
At peace, I believe.
Woman at Peace.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one I want for my home. I love this one.
Yeah, so pigeons is almost as recurring as bicycles, actually, and this one was inspired by a trip to Italy, where when I went there, you could still feed the pigeons corn, and when you threw corn, they would all come swarming in. So this one is called Join the Crowd, and there must be some family connection with birds, because one of my uncles had a pigeon coop when he was a kid, and my son loves pigeons. It's a very strange thing, but I think they're just gorgeous. I love how they shimmer. And
they are beautiful birds. And when I was in your house, I saw a photo of your son holding two pigeons while you guys were in Italy. And is that one of the reasons you find them so endearing?
I think so. Yeah, there's just, they're I don't know, they're just everywhere, but they're beautiful. A lot of people think they're pests, but they're really not.
Yeah, they're just lovely. I want to take a minute to say hey to Nancy Lee Davis, Bill Knapp, Carlos Cepeda, and Beverly Hunter. We are pleased to have you join us. All right, April, let's take another look at one of your paintings, and please tell us about it.
All right. So this is actually a study for a painting. When I decide that I want to do something, and in this one, you'll see in the long run that we're heading up to a painting of a woman. And again, I was fascinated by the fabric of her clothing, and I wanted the whole painting to kind of have the same kind of coloring and texture as the clothing. So I did some studies first to just make sure that I kind of knew how to handle the paint in order to accomplish what I was after. So this is a second study from that. I believe there's a third study we're going to also look at. Actually, this is a shot of the final painting. This is actually a small print of it. It's really quite a large piece, maybe 2 feet by 3 feet in the actual painting. But you know, when I do a piece, there's always something I'm trying to emphasize. And with Guatemala, I loved their textiles and the textures of their clothing. And so all the paintings were kind of about the parts of their culture that I wanted to emphasize and share with others. And sometimes I have to learn new things. This is the beginning of a piece, actually. This is not finished. But obviously another bicycle painting. I did a very abstracted background, as you can see. What I refer to these as my netting backgrounds almost, because that's kind of what they look like. And then I actually paint the figure on top. So I have pretty well defined, but we can zoom in and see that parts of the painting are not actually completed. No, we can't? Okay. All right, well, the bottom of the painting, the tires are not really done. You can't see the pedals at all yet, or any of the gears that, and the sprockets. And some of that I will also bring into view. I want this to be more about the woman and less about the bike, but there will be more development in the bike as well. But you can see, there's a lot of energy that I feel I can communicate by having that kind of a background.
It's really interesting, April. I had not seen the studies. I'm not a painter, so it was really interesting to me in your studio that you did several paintings before you did the larger painting that comprised everything you wanted to do. So I think that's really interesting. You know, you've talked a little bit about texture and how important it is to you. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that I had been published, and so the book that I was selected to have some art in, well, you can't see because it's backwards, but oh, maybe no, you can see it. Okay,
there it is. We
so
can
it's
see
Acrylic
it.
Works 3. Oops, there we go. And it was called Celebrating Texture. And I have 2 paintings in this book. Actually, I think I have a small print of one of them. And in the book, they talk about, so this is one, and what I do is the appearance of texture. So you get the sense of all the rock shapes, but in reality, it's hard edges that are in the paintings in order to give you that illusion of texture. Whereas other paintings that people do, they're actually using a thicker medium. I'm using a fluid medium that just ends up flat on the paper. But other people, you can actually feel a tactile, you can feel the textures. And so that book talks about both, using acrylics that way as well as the way that I do. The only painting, the only recent painting I have that has some texture to it is this one, which is in Robin's gallery. Again, this is a mini print. And in the front of the painting, if you were to go see that in Robin's gallery, you can touch it if it's allowed. I'm giving you permission, but I've applied some thicker mediums to the bottom. There's actually a texture to the cobblestone road, which I was using to help me emphasize the reflection of the wet day on those cobblestones.
That's really a beautiful painting. What is that a painting of?
My husband and I went to Europe last year, and this is in Montmartre, in Paris. And it was all, again, I love to tell stories in my art. And so it was all about this rainy day, and, I'll pop it up here again. And this man who was walking down the street with his umbrella and all the shining off of the cobblestones. And my goal is, not just to represent something I've seen, but to do it in a way where maybe I'll bring back memory for someone who's been there before. In fact, I have had people tell me stories of when they've been in Montmartre and seen that site, and that's what I really love about doing art, is bringing memories back for people. And I love the comments I get when people buy my pieces, because I always hear their story, what they're remembering from the piece, and that's everything to me. My story, I don't even care if they know. If they ask, I'll tell them. But it's all about what I can make you remember. And I try to use in my paintings what I consider happy colors. I don't have a lot of muted colors unless I feel the scene needs that to communicate something. And that's a similarity. Bill Knapp last week talked about his whimsical characters and how he liked to make people smile. And that's a huge motivation for me too.
So Rob is searching up something that says Chas Rimpo. Is that Stuart? Question mark. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. So my husband is on. Chaz is my husband, and he's noticed Stuart, the minion in the background there. So, nice. And I had to bring my minion down here, because if you visit Robin's gallery, you'll see that she loves minions. So I had to make a little connection.
Fabulous. Thank you, April. Well, okay. One story behind the scenes about HorseSpirit Arts Gallery is when I talk to all the artists, depending on what's going on in the gallery, I will sign my name Robin Yellow Minion, or I will sign my name Robin Purple Minion. And these minions come from an animated movie called Despicable Me. But yellow minions mean everything is fine and lovely, and purple minions mean things are not fine and they're kind of chaotic. So I love that Robin Gavigan, who is the gallery manager, gave me Kevin, and now some of the artists have their own minions. So I find that very endearing. So April, now that you've talked about textures, how about, and the one thing I love that you said is how important it is to you that people find inspiration in your work, they find meaning in your work, they find memories, and how much that means to you. And that is such an important component of creating art, is what you give to others. So yeah, let's talk about, what is your inspiration for pieces?
Sure. You know, I've mentioned that when I travel, I'll see things, and you know, I take thousands of pictures, and probably to my husband Chaz's dismay, is there are very few family pictures in all of those thousands of pictures, because I'm always like, oh, that could be a painting. So I come home and I look at the pictures at the end of the trip, and it's like, oh.
Are there any of my husband in there?
Yeah, so I do try to make a point to get a few of Chaz now, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I mean, I just see stuff all the time that delights me, and then I think about it for a while, and what do I want to say about that place, and what was it that made me so excited about it. And then I actually pick color schemes based on the emotions and moods I want to communicate. So I also brought this along tonight to show. So I have this little tiny book that has watercolor paper in it, and then I'll try out a color scheme and see how the colors blend. And then I'll decide, you know, which color scheme I want to use for a particular painting, depending on what I'm communicating. And I even have notes on here about which ones I've done with a particular color scheme. So yeah, I think it out a lot. Now
that's so cool, April. I have to tell you that Lori Hansen does that as well. And when I first went into her studio, she had 2 of them, and I asked her to frame them, and she allowed me to sell them in the gallery, and they actually sold really quickly to an Ellicott City resident, Karen Besson, who is the chair of the Ellicott City Partnership. So if you ever think about framing those, people find them really fascinating.
Hey, I see that Anne we met has made a comment on here. She's a good friend of mine from Massachusetts, which is where I was born. And so, hi, Anne, thank you.
Nice. So my last question for you, April, is what do you like painting the most at this point? So far, we have bicycles, we have pigeons, and we have people from Guatemala.
Yeah, so, you know, there is no one subject matter that I like best. It's all about kind of whatever has struck my nerve. One thing that I do is, you know, I might do a fairly detailed city scene, and actually when Rob was spinning around in my studio area, one of the yeah, exactly. So that's an example. In fact, this painting is going to be in this year's Acrylic Works 4, and that one was called Color, Celebrating Color. And so I'll do a painting like that, which takes a lot of concentration and focus to kind of get all the shapes of buildings, or in this case, the cranes. And then I'll do something like a bicycle painting where it's very free. I've got an abstract background. Sometimes I just do a background before I have any idea what else I'm going to paint, and I'll just have this abstract thing sitting in my studio. And when I'm done with the detail painting, I'll say, okay, it's time to figure out what I'm going to do with this. So it's all about whatever is inspiring me at the time. Oh, this shot here that we're looking at, this is a corner of the painting that we were just looking at. And this is showing the gallery wrap that I do. So as I mentioned, I work on watercolor paper, but I actually stretch it around stretcher bars, and then I varnish them so that, and here's an example of the stretcher bars that you can see. And So I end up with a painting that after it's varnished, you don't have to worry about the fact that, watercolor or the paper itself is going to run on you. It's permanent now. I've got 3 coats of varnish on it. And I've got a quote, a friend of mine who, when he first saw that I started to do this, his comment to me was that he felt like gallery wrapped paintings were part of the room, whereas framed paintings were part of the wall. And I just love that. It's really kind of how I feel. To me, it's just very accessible when you have a painting that's standing up off the wall like that, and you can see it all the way around.
Well, it's just lovely, April. So is there anything else you'd like to let us know about your art or your technique, anything you'd like to share with us?
No, I think I have done that pretty well. I think that instead what I'd like to do is just talk about you and how wonderful you are and what a great owner, from this gallery. And you really touch the heart of all of the artists that are in your gallery. So, it's just great to work with you, Robin, and very grateful to be in your gallery.
Thank you, April. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, it was a pleasure having you on the show tonight. I'd also like to thank Rob. Rob, can you bring yourself up on the screen again? He's trying. Here we go. So Rob, this wouldn't have existed, this show, without you, as you know. I don't know a lot about Facebook. You've now got me on Facebook Live. I have to smile at the fact when I asked you that your shirt was yellow, you told me this whole technology thing. I am 55 years old. I have no idea what Snapchat is, but I am sure that hanging out with you in the next few months, I will learn all sorts of things. So I applaud that it was some technology day, and thank you for sharing it. And I'm incredibly grateful that you sort of encouraged, if not pushed me to do this show, because I think it's great. And I love showing off the artists in the gallery and what they can do.
Well,
so in closing, I'd like you to know that next week we're going to have Dee Lenahan. Dee is a very accomplished painter, and we're going to have Dee on, and then Dee is going to have her art show inside of Pure Wine, which is a very nice restaurant here in Ellicott City. And the reason that's happening is Dee's paintings are huge. They're like 3 feet by 4 feet, and my gallery can't accommodate 8 of those paintings. So Pure Wine, their owner is PJ, has graciously offered us that whole space. And Dee's reception is going to be on March 13th. So I hope you will all come and join us. The last thing I'd like to share with you is sort of the ethos of the gallery. What I really want is when you come into this gallery, for you to not think about what's going on in the outside world. I want you to look at the art. I want you to feel the art. I want you to feel better after you leave this gallery than you did when you came in. And that's really important. The vibe of the gallery, like I said, is eclectic and uplifting. And I view the gallery, or what I aspire to have the gallery be, is a sanctuary. So I really look forward to seeing you next week with Dee Lenahan. Thank you so much to April Rimpo. You're a fabulous artist. Thank you to Rob. And I love being in historic Ellicott City. The community is fabulous, and I hope you'll come visit us soon. I'll see you next week, Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Bye-bye.